Okie doke. All right, so we're recording. This is for the WDRN class, and we're going to go ahead and review chapter 8. But before I do that, I want to show a thing here in the system. So if you jump in at the end, after each of your completions of any topic, you should get an opportunity to click that this particular item has been completed. So if you don't have a green check next to each of your items, then the system doesn't know that you've completed it. So if you could go back after you've done that and complete it, then when you're all finished, when you've completed every area, you can download your certificate of completion. And the certificate of completion will give you a PDF version that you can show if you need to be reimbursed for something or whatever, or just hang it on your wall. But it does get emailed directly to ETA so that then they're aware that you've completed the educational portion of the course. So it's important that you go through, and any of the quizzes or any of the labs, if you don't get an 80% on those, you're going to have to keep retaking those until you get the whole thing so that you can mark that one as completed. Okay, so I'm going to jump into a review of chapter 8. And chapter 8 is the installation. So we're going to start the quiz here. And so the first question, a racking system. Let's see, I'm going to move the image so it's not covering. A racking system that follows the pitch of the roof and is offset from the roof deck by 4 to 10 inches is referred to as and the terminology here is just a flush to roof racking system. That's the one that follows the pitch of the roof. Fairly standard for our installations of rooftop systems, unless it's a flat roof, at which point it would be a ballasted system typically. Which of the following is not part of a typical roof system? Well, helical piers, those are those screw down posts that you see in ground mounted systems. Top clamps, yeah. Footers, yeah. Rails, yeah. So helical piers would not be part of a typical rooftop system. If they are, probably in trouble. Okay, when mounting a racking system on a rooftop, ensure that it's located at least 36 inches from the sides and the ridge of the roof. That is in fact true on a pitched roof. The mounting brackets are secured to the rafters. Yes, you don't want them just in the decking. The rails are mounted perpendicular to the run of the rafters. And what we mean by that is if the rafters, for instance, are going north-south, you want the rails to go east-west so that they're being attached to multiple rafters. So in this case, it's going to be all of the above is the correct answer here. Okay, rooftop mounting systems generally use top-down mounting clamps. Why? Well, you can't get to them otherwise. So there's very little room behind the panels. They're not more expensive. The NEC doesn't require them. It's just from a practical standpoint. If they were bottom up, you just wouldn't be able to reach them. On ground mounted systems, those kind of attachments would actually be easier to work with. Rails on mounting systems should be oriented to attach to the perimeter of the panels, to run perpendicular to the short side, to run perpendicular to the long side, or to run perpendicular to short side, long side when landscape, short side when portrait. Well, typically we're saying to run perpendicular to the long side of the panel. The picture here shows that basically they're always going to be rectangular, and you want the rails to support the long side, not the short side. Just like you would mount plywood on a rafter system. Live loads refer to all the following except the weight of the racking system, the lift from the wind passing over, the weight of snow, additional stress from an earthquake. Well, dead weight or dead load is going to be the weight of the racking system. Usually that's going to be like 2 to 6 pounds per square foot, whereas the live load could be substantially more, like 50 pounds, wind being the biggest issue. In the US, rules regarding climbing safety are generally formed by, and that's going to be OSHA. OSHA is the safety folks. Yeah.
Jay, you said the wind could be the biggest factor of like live weight.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
far and away the
you're
biggest.
talking in regard to lifting the panels, not necessarily the roof itself.
Right, yeah, we're talking about stress placed on the roof by the solar panels. Because they're usually 4 to 6 inches or so off the deck, it's almost like putting an aircraft wing on top of a roof, and you
Yeah.
get lift and you also get pushing down. So it can put as much as 50 pounds per square foot of excess pressure on that roof deck, either in lift or pressing down.
Wow.
Yeah, it's substantial. So the weight of the system is not the big deal. And that's why when you design a racking system, they'll ask you for the zip code in these online tools, because then they estimate what is the anticipated wind load and the anticipated snow load of that particular jurisdiction, that zip code, and it'll factor it into the design of the rack.
Yeah, I thought about the snow and ice and stuff as a really big factor, but I didn't really consider obviously, yeah, the wind would be a factor, but I didn't realize, you'd consider it when you're
yeah, it's going to be huge.
Weight.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. And even snow is lesser, because whether you have a solar array on there or not, the amount of snow is probably going to be the same, or pretty close. So it's usually the wind that's the biggest issue.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Sure, no problem. To avoid electrical shocks, if a ladder comes in contact with a charged conductor, ladders should be made of fiberglass, be less than 24 feet tall, carry the weight that they're designed, secured at the top and the bottom. All those are true, but the electrical shock thing is the fiberglass. A ladder, if it's greater than 24 feet tall, is usually required to be sort of permanently installed on the building. But fiberglass helps with the electrical shock issue. Which ladder is rated to carry 250 pounds? Well, turns out it's blue. And this is one of those things, there's really no way to know it except to memorize it. I always say, just remember Reg Boy. So RGBOY, Reg Boy, red, green, blue, orange, yellow. And really in the beginning, there were just 3 types of ladders. There was red, green, and blue. Heavy duty type 1, 250 pounds. Medium duty type 2 was 225. And light duty type 3 were 200 pounds. Then Americans discovered McDonald's. So they came up with a heavy duty, extra heavy duty type 1A, which is for 300 pounds. And then we discovered drive-through windows. So they have the type 1AA, 370 pounds, 375, and those are yellow ladders. And if you've ever carried one of those yellow ladders, those things are pretty heavy duty. I suspect eventually we'll have a black ladder, probably called type cardiac arrest or something, rated to 500 pounds. So it's just the way, you'll just have to try and remember them. When placing a ladder against the building, the top of the ladder should extend at least 3 feet above the point where it comes in contact. That's true. Gives you something to hold on to as you're getting off of the ladder. The base of the ladder should be offset from the point where it comes in contact with the building by 4 feet. That's not true. It's a 1-to-4 ratio. So if it were 12 foot up, you'd want it 3 feet back. If it's 16 foot up, you'd want it 4 feet back, and so on. The ladder must incorporate fall protection. No, of course you need a harness and lanyard when you're on the roof. So in this case, it should be the top one, the first one. Okay, so that's basic ladder safety. Holes dug for footings in the ground-mounted rack must extend below the frost line. That's true. Extend at least 20 inches below undisturbed soil. No. Extend a minimum. No. So frost line. And if you're living in Florida or whatever and you don't know what a frost line is, then we don't want to hear about it. Okay. When bending EMT conduit, bends cannot extend beyond 90 degrees. Well, that's not true. You can extend a bend more than 90 degrees. Subtract the take up from the stub height. Well, again, that has nothing to do with the, or no, that is actually what we're looking for. No more than 360 degrees in bends in a single circuit. That's not true. It's 360 degrees in a pole, which could be different than a circuit, and ensure the bend's properly crimped. No. So what are we talking about when we talk about the take up from the stub height? If I basically it's saying if I want to make a 90-degree bend and the pipe I would take, it takes, for instance, on a half-inch conduit bender, it takes about 5 inches to make that 90-degree bend. So that's referred to as the take up. Takes 5 inches of length in order to make a 90-degree bend. It's going to raise up 5 degrees or 5 inches in that bend. So if I want the stub height to be 13 inches high, I would subtract the take up, which is 5 inches, from whatever I wanted that. If it was 13 inches, if I want the stub height to be there, then I would end up subtracting that, and I'd end up at 13 inches, or sorry, 8 inches. I'd subtract the take up, which is 5 inches, from the stub height, which would be 13 inches, and I would make my mark at 8 inches and begin the bend. You'll see that when we do the hands-on labs. The EMT must be supported every 3 feet except for buried conduit, every 10 feet and within 3 feet of each box fitting and cabinet. That's the right answer. All the rest are not right, okay? So basically you need one J-hook or one support on each piece of conduit, except if you're making a connection somewhere, at which point they want you to support it within 3 feet of that. A blank is used to pull conductors through a conduit. Well, that's known as a fish tape. It's usually wire. Normally what you do is you pull a pull string through, then you attach the pull string to the wire, and then you use the pull string to pull the wire through the conduit. When climbing a ladder, always use a 3-point climbing technique. Well, that's true. You want 3 points of contact on the ladder at all times. 2 hands, 1 foot, 2 feet, 1 hand, 3 points of contact. So if you slip, you don't fall. You've still got, if one of those comes off, you've still got 2 points of contact. Secure the top and bottom with a rope when there's a potential to fall. Yeah, possibly. Conduct a lockout tagout, no. And ANSI approved eye protection and a hard hat, that's not necessarily. So basically the 3-point is the best answer there. A document that provides health and safety information about products, substances, or chemicals on site. These are just simply referred to as material safety data sheets, MSDS. If you do have an inspection from OSHA or some other body, they may ask to see the MSDS. Usually in solar, really, we're only talking about batteries as far as hazardous chemical equipment. Which of the following is not a common problem if too much torque is applied to a connection? Galled wire or hardware, that's when you basically tighten it so much that that thing sort of tends to strip out a little bit. Stressed or damaged connections, yeah. Deformed connections, yeah. Connections that become hot and can lead to arcing or fires. Pretty much that's the answer, because that's what happens if you have a loose connection. Then the electrical connection will arc between them. So all the rest of them happen when you tighten it too much. When two dissimilar materials or metals, such as aluminum and the ground wire, which is pretty common, come in contact with each other, what can occur? Well, this is known as galvanic corrosion. And if you've never experienced it or seen it, it's pretty dramatic. And if you have a copper wire that's touching an aluminum frame, you may find that one or the other of those will actually disintegrate, over the next couple of years. It'll just turn to powder. And that's not good. Your ground could be destroyed. Your frame, the integrity of the frame could be ruined. So you don't want dissimilar metals to touch each other. So when making a connection, like stainless steel bolts are usually the O positive of these connections, where if you needed to connect copper to aluminum, for instance, you would do it using a stainless steel bolt because those they don't tend to corrode as easily. Okay, so that gets us through here with the quizzes. When you're done, clicking here to continue should show that you've finished this quiz, and it'll report that through the system. Your little check mark will be in place. Now I'm going to jump into chapter 9, review quiz here. Okay, so we'll jump in there, start the quiz. This one, chapter 9, I think is a paperwork. Yeah, paperwork chapter. So which of the following will likely not be required by the local building department? Do you need an electrical permit? Well, yeah, probably. A mechanical permit? Very likely, especially if it's on a building. A license or a certification? They may require it. They may not require it. An interconnection agreement is something that your utility would want, not your local building department. So that's why that's the right answer. A simple electrical drawing that uses boxes to represent various components and lines to represent conductors is called a one-line drawing. And we call it that because like there's one line for each circuit. You don't draw each wire, like here's the positive, here's the negative, here's the ground. Those are usually referred to as 3-line drawings. So it's just a conceptual drawing that tells you there's where all the stuff is. This is how it's connected together. The main DC connection is required to include a label that contains all the following except the open circuit voltage, the capacity, the maximum voltage, or the short circuit current. Now, I don't remember this one, so let's take a wild guess. It's going to be probably either open circuit voltage or main power voltage. Since it was asking for the ISC, I'm going to assume it's just worrying about worst case voltage, worst case amperage, and what's the capacity of my system. So let's see if I guessed right. Nope, incorrect. I guessed wrong. It apparently just doesn't care what size array I've got. Okay, I'll need to study that one again. Blanks provide a baseline performance record of how the system was functioning on the day it began operating. Well, that's your commissioning form. That's when you're going to fill out your form and say, okay, this was our results. This was the conditions that we tested it the first time we turned this thing on. So that's what a commissioning form does. Emergency shutdown procedures are an example of information that should be included in basically the operation and maintenance documents. This is what you turn over to the homeowner, you know, when you're, or the facilities operator, when you're done. You know, you want to do a bit of an orientation, and then you want to turn over the documentations that say, here's all your warranties. Here's my contact information if you need to get in touch with me. Here's how you operate the system. And here's your emergency shutdown procedures if there's a problem. So pretty straightforward. At this level, you probably wouldn't be involved in a lot of that because that's more the lead technician or the PV level 2 that we get a lot more involved in all of that. Okay, so that's a quick review of chapters 8 and chapters 9. I want to just re-stress that if you haven't already completed the online program, jump on that because we're getting close. The schedule is basically, I think it's today's the 11th. If I recall right, it's Friday the 22nd is the day of the test. I'll have more information for you on Friday. Friday will be our last online review session. We'll do chapters 10 and 11, finishing those up. Then what I'll do is communicate with you through email, just double checking to make sure you've gotten through the whole educational thing. Hopefully by next Friday, if you have any questions as you're studying for the test, try and answer those. give you all the details as far as where we're meeting for the test, how we're dealing with that. I'll try and have that all for you on Friday. Okay. Okay, Tony, did you have any questions before we adjourn here? Nope. Okay. All right, great. So I'll see everybody on Friday, either through the
I
video.
just,
Oh, yeah.
sorry. I just wanted to, so the hands-on portion, that's on Friday, the same Friday, the day of the test? Is that the
Yes.
22nd you said?
Yeah, the plan is we'll do some of the hands-on things that we won't be doing as part of the installation. We'll do those on Friday morning. We'll do some review before the exam, and then after lunch, we'll take the test. The test will only
Okay.
take 2 hours.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. All right, great. Talk to you guys later. All right, take care.
Thanks, Jay.
Sure thing. Bye-bye.